and also, of course, to welcome our wonderful speakers. Thank you for being here.
How wonderful is it to be here together on the grounds of the magnificent institution, the Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj Vastu Sangrahalaya is, which is celebrating its 100th year. Thank you to Mumbai Gallery Weekend for bringing together some of the most significant leaders of the Indian art scene who represent both public and private institutions from around the country. Thank you to our eminent panelists for making the time to be here. We have with us today Dr. Sabyasachi Mukherjee, the Director General of the CSMVS, Roobina Karode, Director and Chief Curator of the Kiran Nadar Museum of Art in New Delhi, Shri Anjani Kumar Singh, the Director General of the Bihar Museum in Patna, Tasneem Mehta, the Honorary Director of the Bhau Daji Lad Museum in Mumbai. By the way, the BDL is celebrating its 150th anniversary, the building is. So that's also another milestone. Abhishek Poddar, the founder and trustee of the Museum of Art and Photography in Bangalore, and Puja Vaish, director of the Jehangir Nicholson Art Foundation within the CSMVS in Mumbai. Museums, as we know, separate good cities from great ones. They have the power to bring communities together, not just on a social and political level, but at a local level too. By understanding that we have a shared past, we can, despite our differences, feel a sense of unity. Importantly, these are no longer static spaces, as the representatives on this panel will speak to, but living, breathing institutions that are embracing change. Technology is transforming museums into places where audiences can participate and engage, as we saw during the pandemic. As Dr. Mukherjee wrote in his letter commemorating the centenary of the CSMVS, museums have played their part in healing by offering us enriching experiences, which is significant as we emerge out of this pandemic and look towards the future. We've asked our speakers to discuss their approaches and strategies in these unprecedented times and in light of changing audience expectations. What does this mean for the future of their collections and acquisitions? What are their thoughts on public-private partnerships? Now, before I invite Dr. Mukherjee to kick things off, we would love to understand, sir, in addition to the outstanding questions I just asked, how you are planning on celebrating the museum's 100th anniversary, as well as understand how the museum straddles both private and state, if any, involvement.
This is one of the unique institutes in the country, not supported by the government, neither by the central or the state. It was created by the people for the people. So our history is the history of Mumbai. After American Civil War, 1861, Mumbai, that time Bombay, made fortune. All of you know this is one of the cities in the country was built by the people, not by the king or emperors. Whereas Delhi was built, Kolkata, East India Company, European contribution. But this is the uniqueness of Bombay. The Bombay was built by the people, and the museum was built by the people, not by the government alone. So it was a people's initiative under the leadership of Sir Firoz Shah Mehta. They felt that it's important for us to create little cultural space. Nowadays, hardly anybody think about creating cultural space. But in early 20th century, people of Bombay, they felt that it is important for us to have cultural space. So Bombay Presidency offered many things. They gave little space within the JJ School of Art campus. People were not happy with that. They wanted, prominent space, and they demanded. And this space was aptly, known as crescent site, that you have to give us this space. And space was allocated on condition that the people of Mumbai, people of Bombay then, should be in position to maintain it. And I'm happy to say that after 100 years, the people of Bombay kept that promise. So we shared our problem, our difficulty with the staff, and you will be surprised to know it was a collective decision that staff, we contribute. So senior level staff, they decided to contribute 35% from their salary, middle level 25%, and then the ground level said we would like to contribute. So 10% ground level staff they contributed. And for 1 year, when we shared this experiment, the responses of staff, people of Bombay, they responded immediately that we would like to do something for the museum. And when I shared this experiment, successful experiment with our European and American colleagues, because they were selling, they were auctioning their collection, and they said, oh, we never thought about. So community came around, and during pandemic we could raise 5 crores, making community conscious about their cultural heritage, and creating a kind of awareness that you own this. And Bombay responded. Mumbai responded immediately. And that is what we realized, every project, little bit project we shared, money came.
The nature of your approach to exhibition making at the KNMA, what came first, the collection or the curation? And at what point does the curation influence the collection patterns of the museum?
It is not just the building, but yes, what are museums without people? And I think the Mumbai people are just amazing. We just heard about it. So I think a lot of what we are talking here is about museums and about communities or people who actually the audience that make the museum. It just started as Ms. Kiran Nadar deciding that she wanted to build a museum because she wanted to share her collection. So this art and cultural spaces is really the need, and that was the reason to actually open a museum. And she was wanting to really make it, focus actually on modern and contemporary, because this is something that really has not happened even in the capital city of India. As many theories that you may read about museums, it is actually how you can translate it to daily action. What is that daily action that happens in a museum, as you plan each day and as you plan an interaction with your people within the museum and outside the museum. So this is an ongoing process. It's not never going to be complete or perfect in that sense, but the definition of museum is what you need to generate all the time, because museums are no more homogeneous entities. And I think this is the chicken and egg story. What comes first, collection or curation? It works both ways. Mr. Mukherjee has already pointed out that it is curation helps collection making, and collection building helps curation, and it really reinforces how you can curate and really create new kinds of discourses through what you're collecting in. And so I think a collection really becomes an impetus and a catalyst to really think of different kinds of exhibition making.
Right from the beginning, the idea was to develop a culture center, not a museum. Though primarily it is a history museum, but you have a section on contemporary art, you have a section on folk art. So here in this museum now, the concept is of a storytelling. Using, all these collections that we have and using audio-visual aid. So you will get a story of a Mauryan dynasty, you will get a story of Chandragupta, you will get a story of Sher Shah Suri. So we tried to create a platform for museums, to begin with Indian museums, but somehow because of pandemic it could not happen. We had to do in a virtual mode. There I got a huge support. In fact, 10 outside foreign museums participated. Of course, our Indian museums participated, but it was online. We had many talks, and many people sitting here participated in that.
So I just want to focus a little bit about what I think is going to happen in the future for museums and for contemporary art and for the kind of shows that we have seen happening across the world up to now. These kind of big, spectacular shows in huge, spectacular museums, lots of wonderful, great architecture. So if we were to look at the next 10 years and what will happen to all of us, I think it's going to be very challenging. The general consensus seems to be that museums want to focus on local talent, on local diversity. They want to look at diversity. It's not that they're going into a silo, but they're looking at diversity within the context of their own environment. So I see museums becoming much more educational and research institutions, deep research into collections, into ideas, theories, and being able to bring that out and flesh it out and share it with your audiences, making it accessible to audiences, making it interesting.
Abhishek, if you could first tell us about your goals behind setting up MAP.
I think it was a folly. I didn't know what I was getting into. But I must say it's something that I've really enjoyed because it was a dream of doing something with the collection. And like Roobina was saying, when Kiran wanted to share the collection, it just sitting in storage made no sense. We don't know why we buy what we buy, but it's time to put it out there and for everyone to enjoy it. They said you do a digital launch, and what does a digital launch even mean? I mean, my building's not ready. What am I showing anyone? I don't know what we did, but we somehow did it. And when we did the opening, the plan was only to do an opening. And then they said, but now that you've done an opening, what are you going to do? So we said, we'll open when we open. And said, until then. So that's when the digital museum was born. And today we are doing an event every week. We do a masterclass every month. We do downloadable kits for children every month. We do classes practically every day. We do the director's cut. We do the deep dive. I mean, we do exhibitions. And so to tell you, had we done this physically, on our opening, we would have had about 130 people in our auditorium. But today, our opening has been watched over 70,000 times. We have many people here who are supporting the museum. And the good part is, anyone who's come forward, we've not taken them as a donor, we've taken them as a founder. And I'm confident that this year we would raise our endowment.
So the Jehangir Nicholson Art Foundation is actually a private organization which has its own modern art collection, post-independence art collection. And it's currently housed in the CSMVS Museum. And so Nicholson, it's amazing at that point of time, also had though it's a private collection and he's a private collector, his vision was always of, making it public. And he sort of, till the end of his life, like it's true what Abhishek said, he started thinking about it much later, because I think that's the time that the collection sort of grew for him to kind of realize that, okay, this is something that needs to be seen and shown, and the people need to access it. But I think it's quite something to take someone who's long gone, and then you kind of actually make that dream happen post his death. So I think that's kind of been something that really drives everything that I do. Yeah, I feel like the vision for JNF would be to kind of glean and tell stories of history, because the collection tells you it's a very interesting way to understand the history of India, like a history of a nation through its art. So I find that really, really fascinating.
Mr. Sabyasachi, Roobina, Anjani sir, Tasneem and Puja, young Puja, really, and also great representation, by the way, geographically here, quite coincidentally, and gender, of course. Thank you, Gayatri, for being a wonderful moderator. Thank you, each of you, for taking this time out and coming and, a first open air kind of, and thank you, Mr. Sabyasachi, for this absolutely fabulous amphitheater, garden. I mean, I don't think we could ask for anything better.